everybody, and welcome to another board game review and gameplay demo. Today's is very special because this actually comes by request of EAG. We are going to be talking about Firefly, the board game. Well, the game, technically. But either way, the idea of Firefly, the game, is that you are going out, you are completing contracts for various contacts, you're getting a crew, you're trying to avoid the Alliance, you're trying to avoid the Reavers, and all this kind of stuff. It's really cool, and if you have ever seen the show, if you've ever watched the Serenity movie, then you will feel right at home playing this game. It can take a little bit to get into, but obviously I'll explain all of the rules, or at least the vast majority, so that you can really sort of dive in and get going with it. But there's a lot of reasons to love this game. It's a ton of fun and really kind of surprising, because ordinarily with something that's based off of like a TV show or a movie or things like that, you normally don't really expect it to be really that good. I mean, normally you expect it to be really more of a cash-in by the company, but this particular game is actually a lot of fun, relatively strategic, and on top of that, it's actually fairly quick to play as well, which is something that's also relatively rare and very welcome as well. There's obviously a lot to talk about with it, though. We'll go ahead and get started right away with some games that this is similar to. As far as similarities are concerned, there were a few that I wanted to draw your attention to. First off is one that I mentioned a couple weeks ago in another review that I did called Raid and Trade. It has a very similar sort of setting where you're talking about like post-war, just crazy wackiness. Everybody is out on their own and you don't trust anybody, but at the same time the whole point is that you're doing quests, you're trying to gather up items, you're trying to gather as many resources as you can, going around like a destroyed city, that kind of stuff. So in that context, Raid and Trade is fairly similar in a lot of ways to Firefly. Other than that, one that you might be a little bit surprised by is actually Arkham Horror. The biggest thing with Arkham Horror that is a similarity to Firefly, in addition to the idea of trying to get items and things like that, is that you're going on sort of quests, but in the case of Arkham Horror, you just have location cards. So when you get to a location, you draw a card and you do something. In Firefly, you have a very similar mechanic. In addition, at different shops within Arkham Horror, within the game, you've got certain shops that specialize in different things. For example, you can go get spells, you can go get common items, all that kind of stuff. Just depending on exactly what you need, you can go to different stores to get them. So there's two really major similarities there. And actually another one for Arkham Horror is the fact that depending on what bad guy you're facing off against, depending on what Elder One you're facing against, it can drastically change the way that the game plays through. It can change the types of creatures that you're fighting against, it can change the capabilities of the creatures you're fighting against, all that kind of stuff. Firefly has a very similar thing with the story cards, where it really changes the goals primarily, it changes how you win, but it also greatly changes the way that you go about winning. It changes the requirements for winning, obviously, and things like that. Last but not least, as far as comparisons are concerned, is I wanted to point out Dead of Winter. Dead of Winter has a very similar mechanic to both Firefly as well as Arkham Horror, where certain locations specialize in certain types of goods. And Firefly is very similar to that, where you've only got one or two copies or just a handful of copies of a specific type of card, and they're only at certain locations. Again, it is canonical as far as the TV show and the movie is concerned, so if you're familiar with those, then you'll recognize the locations, and if you remember really hard, then you'll know what types of things are there. But obviously you can look at the cards before you start playing so that you can get an idea of what's there. The same thing goes for the various contract providers as well. So, for example, Haskins, I believe his name is. See, now I can't remember. Maybe it's Harkins. Oh, jeez, I apologize. I don't remember the guy's name. But either way, since he works for the Alliance, you can only get legal jobs from him. He won't give you anything illegal. You know, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different options with those types of things. And again, there's good comparisons with Arkham Horror and Dead of Winter in terms of the game progression, where you're moving, you draw cards to see some kind of event that occurs. You also have the sort of focused stores, so to speak, that you can go to get specific types of items. And then as far as raid and trade, it's very, very similar overall, where not only do you have quests, like you've got contracts with Firefly, but you also have a very similar world scenario, and you also have what was it? You also have sort of the idea that everybody is on their own in the post-apocalypse, and you're trying to just go through, complete these quests, get items, craft things, all that kind of stuff. Very, very similar in gameplay. But with that, we'll go right on ahead into my gameplay demo so that you can see exactly how you play Firefly. Alright folks, we're basically all set up and ready to play some Firefly. So first and foremost, I do apologize because I don't have a lot of space on this table for the game, but I'll be able to show you the broad strokes for how it works and all that kind of good stuff. You see that initially we've got board, we've got player mats. I've only got this set up for 2 players at present, and we got cards all around. We got stocks of tokens of various sorts. The cards up along the top, those are our job tokens. We have navigation cards for when we're moving through space, and then we have the aim to misbehave cards, which we use whenever we're doing illegal things. On this side, we've got all of the shop tokens, essentially. This is where we go whenever we have things that we want to purchase. There's an upside down card in there, unfortunately. All right. So this is your basic setup. You want to have everything separated out, and we are all ready to go. Each time, whenever you start, each player will get a player mat. They will get the corresponding ship color. You start with 8 fuel tokens, which are these little guys. So you see they're small rectangular pieces. You also start with 2 parts tokens, which are the same size as the fuel tokens. Essentially, you can take 2 of either fuel and or parts, combination thereof, and they fit into a single slot of your cargo hold. Something else, such as cargo or its sister, contraband, will take up a whole spot just on its own. All right. So everybody starts with 8 fuel, 2 parts, a character sheet, the ship token, and then we also start with the starting drive core, which is this, the Radon Accelerator Mark 1. Okay. To begin the game, what we need to do is first we got to set up the navigation decks. We've got border space and alliance space. Shuffle those. Each deck also has a card like this that says reshuffle deck at the bottom. This starts the discard. Right? So those begin outside. Once the deck is exhausted, then those will get put into place. We also place the cruiser and the cutter. Here's the Alliance cruiser. Starts at Laudinium in White Sun. And then the cutter starts on the Firefly logo, as stated in the rules. Next, we choose the leader cards. I've already done that for us. We've got Burgess and Malcolm. There's a total of, I believe, 7, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember exactly how many. But the way that this works is you have a roll-off. Whoever rolls the highest gets to pick their leader first. So blue won the roll-off. They picked Burgess. Orange, the Serenity, had to go with Malcolm because you kind of have to. After that, then we get to place our ships wherever we want, and you do it in reverse order. So because the Serenity lost the roll-off, they get to place their ship first, and they will go ahead and go... they'll go over here at the Persephone, and then the Bonnie Mae Burgess will go over here to the Space Bazaar, and with Anandol in this particular case. Okay. The end goal of the game really depends on whatever story you picked. In this case, the story that I'm using is the one that's recommended for new players. You can see it says at the bottom of the sheet here. Now, this has a modification to the jobs. Normally, what you would do is you would take a single card from each Patience, Anandol, Badger, Harkin, which I can now know because I can see his name, and Niska. When you take one of each of those 5, and then you discard down to a maximum of 3. You can get rid of all 5 cards if you want, but you can only have a maximum of 3. In the case of the first time one, this recommended scenario is we only take a card from Anandol and we take one from Harkin, and that just to make things a little bit easier. There's also a couple of special scenario cards in here that I wanted to point out as well, if I can grab them all. So the first special one is this one, this green one. This is just the standard setup. This is what every single game game has to go through. And this is basically what I'm going down right now. This is sort of the rundown of everything that you got to do in the order in which you do it. The other major one is this one, the solo play. The solo play is really cool, and it's nice to have it in a game like this and that they thought about it. But it's cool to have this scenario-driven thing. We've got a total of 6 different scenarios, including the starter one and the solo one, so it's pretty good, right? Next thing is we pick our starting job. So again, we don't pick all 5. We just get one from Harkin, one from Amandol. Now, most of these jobs are going to be legal jobs. Some of them, however, will be illegal. So you can see in the top right-hand corner, both of these say legal. We'll see about the Bonnie Mays. We've got legal and also legal. However, in this case, this one's actually immoral. So anytime we have a crew member who is moral, then they will be very upset by it. And they'll be like, no, I can't do that. Grrr. Very unpleasant. Very unpleasant. All right. So that's it, and then we do what's called priming the pump. That's the end part of this green setup card here, which is we take 3 cards and start a discard, because whenever you're shopping, you can go through the discard pile to pick cards. So what I'll do now is I'll go through the basics of the game, starting with the skill checks. The skill checks are the basis of how this game actually functions, how you go about doing your job in the verse, so to speak. And the way that it works is based off of whatever your crew and items have. So for example, Malcolm here, you notice there are 2 guns and then this little speech bubble. So that means that you've got 2 fight and then you've got 1 negotiate. In the case of Burgess, you've got a fight, you've got a mechanic or a tech, and then you've also got a negotiate. So he's got all 3. He's a little bit more versatile. You've got some of the gear. Gear is just anything that you can equip onto characters. And in this case, if you get a shiny necktie, then not only is it some fancy duds as the keyword, but it gives you a plus to negotiation because you just look so darn cool. All right. The way that the skill checks actually work is I'll show you on one of these. Here, the Sheriff's Justice. The idea here is that you've got a specific symbol. You've got either negotiate, fight, or tech, and then you have a goal. So in this case, you've got negotiate 8. You have to roll an 8 or higher. If you roll a 1 to a 7, you get a warrant, which is very bad. And if you get an 8 or higher, the attempt is botched, which means that you just don't get to go through this one. The only way that you can move through it, in this case this aim to misbehave card, these are the cards that you'll be playing whenever you're committing crimes, essentially. So if you want to actually move past it, you have to fight your way through, and you see it says proceed at the bottom. The other thing is some of these cards have an ace in the hole. In this case, if you have a companion on your crew that's on this mission, then you just proceed and you don't have to do anything. But the way the skill checks actually work is you would take your negotiation skill and then add it to whatever it is that you roll on the die. Or your gunfighting, whatever it happens to be. So for Malcolm, he's got 2 fight skill, and basically we're trying to roll a 9. The problem is you can't do that on a 6-sided die. The way that it works in Firefly is instead of the 6 pip, you actually have a picture of a Firefly, and that is when you get to do your Thrillin' Heroics, which means that you roll the 6, so that means that you've got 6, 7, 8 in this case, and then you get to roll it again. And look, I got Thrillin' Heroics. I'm so thrillin' and so heroic. But you shouldn't count on that in order to do it, but basically it just means you're so cool, you get to keep going. So we'll try, and we can't try for the negotiation by ourselves either. So we'll try one that we can at least attempt to do here. Then there's a couple of other little things as well that I'll get into. All right. So here we got Burgess, and he's got a single tech, and we're trying to get a total of 7. Which is very, very unpleasant. So the idea here is that it's just a little job on the side, and if you take the profitable detour, then you can get some extra money, but you would basically ruin your chances at doing anything else, or you can stay on target and you just move past it, okay? But if he'll try it, he has to get a 6, because he's only got 1 skill. He only got a 2. Since he rolled between a 1 and a 6, the attempt is botched, and he wouldn't be able to keep going. There's a couple of little rules on the skill checks. One of them is you can have the kosherized rules, which means that during a fight, check, you can only use your crew. You can't use any gear that they have. The other thing is you can have bribes for negotiation. For every 100 you spend, you get an additional skill, essentially. And then you also have the thrill and heroics, which I already described, but that's pretty much it. And that's really where your crew comes into play. You notice I really couldn't do anything on my own with just the leaders. So that's why we go and we buy. We go and we hire new crew members. Each of these has new crew members, but just like with Arkham Horror, each buy section has sort of a specific specialty that it's good at. So like the Space Bazaar has a decent number of pilots, so a lot of crew of various sorts. The Silverhold Munitions obviously has a lot of guns, firearms, and various sorts. Persephone is sort of a grab bag, but primarily ship upgrades and crew, a little bit of gear. Osiris Shipwrecks, obviously a whole lot of ship upgrades that you can put at the bottom of your card. And then Regina is sort of a random amalgamation of a whole bunch of different stuff that you can always get, right? So that's the different buys that you can get. As far as the different people giving you the jobs, you've got legal and illegal jobs. You've also got moral and amoral jobs. The legal ones are obviously perfectly legal. Illegal ones require you to transport illegal goods and or people. If you get caught, you're in big trouble. If you are immoral, if you got an immoral one, then it's going to wreak havoc on your moral crew members, but I'll get to that in just a little bit. Actually playing the game, you get 2 actions per turn, or 2 actions per round technically, and during your actions you can do 2 things out of 4. You've got fly, you've got work, you've got buy, and you've got deal. You can do 2 of those. You cannot repeat. Fly is exactly what it sounds like. You fly around going various places. Deal is where you go and talk to the contacts to get new jobs. Buy is where you can go to any of the things here. So for example, there's Osiris, there's Regina, there's Silverhold is down there, the Bazaar is up there, and then Persephone. And then for the different people that you can talk to, you've got Badger, you've got Amandal, Harkin is on the Alliance cruiser all the time, and then you've got Patience and Niska right over here. So those are your possible things for the buy and the deal. And then your work is when you actually start doing one of your job cards. That is a separate action in and of itself, and I'll go and give a brief rundown on all 4 of those. The fly action has a couple of major things. First off, you can do one of 2 things. You can either mosey, which means you just move 1 sector, typically, unless you have upgraded your drive. The other option is you can do a full burn. Typically, you'll have to spend a fuel, and then you can move up to the range of whatever your drive is. You start off with a range of 5. If you decide to do a full burn, then for every sector you go into, you have to draw a navigation card and resolve it. So hopefully you'll be able to keep flying on, but sometimes you'll be stopped by the Alliance, you'll get in trouble with the Reavers, whatever it happens to be. Okay? All sorts of different things can happen. If you're moseying, just moving 1 at a time, once each turn, then you don't draw nav cards though. So you can sort of stay out of trouble that way. And there's a couple of little things that I'll get into with that. As far as the Reavers and the Alliance, you've got this thing. If you come into contact with the Alliance, this is all the stuff that happens. You get in trouble if you've got illegal crew. If you've got crew with warrants on it, you get in trouble if you've got a warrant on your ship itself. And then with the Reaver, they just attack everybody. They don't care about your status with the Alliance. But hopefully you'll be able to get out of it. As an example, let me see if I've got one. I don't know if I do. Yes, we do. Here's an example of a crew member, River Tam. You may be familiar with her. So you can see she costs 0 money to hire, but she actually is wanted. It's the same symbol is there as is on this with the warrant issued. If you get something that says warrant issued, this is the little token you get, and now your entire ship has a warrant on it. You have to lose your job and all sorts of stupid stuff like that, right? So that's the movement. Make sure that you do the nav cards. If you do the full burn, that's the biggest thing. Buying and dealing. The way that buying and dealing works is very, very simple. You draw 3 cards. You can keep up to 2. If you're buying, then you can draw from the discard piles. So you can take all 3 from the discard. You can take 2 and 1, 1 and 2, or all 3 from here. Doesn't matter. And then you can purchase up to 2. So in this case, if these were the 3 cards that we drew, then we could say take River Tam. She's free. and then we can upgrade our ship with a cargo hold for 600. So then we'd pay the 600, and then we put it in one of our upgrade slots at the bottom of our little card. Okay, so that's how the buying works. You can hire crew, you can buy gear, you can buy ship upgrades, you can buy all sorts of stuff from all of these different things. Doing the deals works the same way. Draw 3 cards from a person that you can contact with in whatever area you're in. Look at the cards, and you can keep up to 3, but you can only ever have 3 jobs in your hand. You can never have more than that, unfortunately. But that is how that kind of stuff works. I'll go over one of the job cards and just tell you exactly what everything means. Hopefully I'll be able to get an illegal one. Awesome. All right. This is an example of an illegal card. This particular one is from Badger. And all that you need to do is you just read everything about it. You can see first off that it's illegal, so that's bad. The target is just a crime, which means you go somewhere and you misbehave. That's really all it is. Misbehaving just means that you draw however many cards it says and you resolve them in order. If you're able to proceed through however many cards there are, then you succeed and you get whatever the money is. And then in this case, you have to crack the safe. So the crack the safe is a tech skill check. If you have to try to roll a 6. If you roll between a 1 and a 5, then you get a warrant issued. But if you get a 6 or more, then you get paid. Or you can just use the explosives and you get paid half of that 4,000. In addition, if you've got a specific type of character, then sometimes you'll be able to get a bonus on that particular mission. All right? So that's an example of a job card. Most of them are very self-explanatory, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about exactly how they work. Okay? And to do that, you have to do a work action at any section of the card. So, for example, for most cards, a lot of them are deliveries. You have to do a work at the pickup location, which in this case is the Space Bazaar. And then you also have to do a work action at the drop-off, which in this case is Hera. So after you have done the pickup, move over to the drop-off, and then perform the drop-off, then you're able to do it. But again, it does take, in this case, potentially at least 3 actions, but probably more, or potentially more depending on how far you can move your ship. All right, so that's how that works as far as getting the job cards. Now, actually performing the jobs, like I said, you just do whatever it says on the card, but the biggest thing is that you need to assign your crew to it. Whenever you say, I am going to attempt to do this job, if you're talking about aim to misbehave cards, or if you're talking about specific skill checks like Badger with the safe cracking or whatever, then you need to get your crew on board. So for example, if I've got Malcolm, and then I've got River, and is there really no other crew out here? Here's one. All right. And then I've got this guy. If I've got Lund, then I've got a total of 4 fight because of Malcolm and Lund, and then I've got 1 negotiation because of Malcolm. River gives you random stuff depending on how well you roll before the skill check, right? So you say what crew members you're sending, and then you can equip specific items on them. So for example, I could say Malcolm is going to take the shiny necktie because he's in the picture after all, and then River Tam, she will take the improvised hacking device, and Lund here will take the explosives. If I had all of those, if I had purchased those over the course of the game, then I'd be able to give all of those up. Now, some gear cards are reusable, others are not. For example, this explosive charge is discard to count as explosives, or discard to add plus fight to a fight test after you roll. So potentially good, but again, it's just use once and discard. Same thing for the improvised hacking rig. You can discard it to count as a hacking rig. There's a lot of cards that refer to that. Or you can discard it to add a tech after you have rolled a tech roll. So lots of potential there. We'll put all these guys back over here, and our River will go back, and our shiny necktie. Yay! All right. So that's pretty much it as far as exactly how that goes. Once you have completed a job, then a couple of things happen. First, you will become solid with that contact. And what that means, after you have delivered the cargo to Hera, then you would take the card, flip it over, and you can see it has some words there. In this case, when solid, load any passengers and fugitive at the Space Bazaar no limit. And you can sell contraband and cargo for 500 and 600 respectively. And what you would do is you would just stick that under your your player mat just like that, so that you know that you are solid with that person and you get that specific bonus from him or her. Okay. You do that once. After you are solid with a specific contact, you can't be like double solid. You would just discard any jobs that you complete with them. But if you are solid with a contact and then you are doing another job and you get a warrant, then you are no longer solid with them because they don't want the alliance on their backs, unfortunately. In addition, after you have completed a job and you get paid, you also have to pay any crew that you have. If you've hired crew, then completing a job means you have to pay whatever their recruitment fee is again. So for example, if you've got Lund, then you would have to pay 200 when you initially get him, and then you'd also have to pay 200 if he goes on a mission with you as well. I mean, if you complete a job with him, I should say as well. Okay, but other than that, there's a couple of other little things regarding the crew that I'll go over very briefly, and then we'll go ahead and get started with actually playing. I mentioned very quickly before about these disgruntled tokens. Disgruntled means that your crew doesn't like where they are. So these can be given to your crew members by various navigation cards. They can be given if you force a moral crew member to perform an immoral job, and you can also get them from just a couple of other just random little things. But either way, the point is, if your crew is disgruntled, then you need to fix it. They can potentially jump ship if you get 2 disgruntled tokens and they go back to their discard pile. If you run into another Firefly, then that other captain can hire them off of you, and essentially they would just pay whatever their recruitment fee is, and then they would just jump ship onto the other persons. The other thing that can, those are the only 2 things that can really happen. But the other thing you can do to stop that, or one thing you can do to stop that, is to do what's called shore leave. Anytime you're at any of these planets, it doesn't matter which one, as long as it's a labeled planet, then as an action, effectively, you can pay 100 credits per crew member, even if they're not disgruntled. Pay 100 credits per, and then you remove all disgruntled tokens. Basically, you give them a little bit of fun, happy, and then they're all good to go again. And yay! Oh boy. All right. So that's the disgruntled. If your leader gets disgruntled, you notice that the leaders have the leader phrase on the side of their card there. If your leader gets disgruntled twice, then essentially they fire everybody on the crew. They will still be your leader, but you no longer have a crew. All of the crew members go to their respective discard piles after that. And that's pretty much it. The other thing is, if you're at a planet and you have absolutely nothing else to do, no jobs, no nothing, you can do a make work action, which means you just collect 200 credits. So you don't have a job, maybe you're low or out of fuel, and you just need something to do. You just do that so that you can have something at least. All right? Incidentally, one thing I forgot to mention, if you're at a supply center, you can purchase fuel for 100, and you can also purchase parts for 300 as well. So you want to make sure that you keep your fuel relatively well stocked so you can do those full burns to really just move around a little bit more efficiently, and parts are good for avoiding some of the nasty navigation cards as well. All right, now winning the game. Winning the game, like I said, is relatively simple, just depending on exactly what scenario you're doing. In this case, we have 3 goals that we need to do for our specific story. We have to be solid with 2 different contacts. So in other words, we need to complete 2 jobs with 2 different contacts. And if we do so, we get a gold token, which is the other side of the warrant issued. All right. After that, we need to collect a total of 6,000 credits in hand. After we do that, then we take a second gold token, and then we need to head over to Ezra in Georgia. After we do that, then basically we're paying back the loan that we got in order to purchase our ship for a total of 6,000. So after we do that, then you win, and yay, you're free and clear to go and be and do however you wish. All right, so that is the basic summary of all of the moving parts and pieces for the game. Obviously, doing the jobs and getting the new ones and all that kind of stuff really affects everything. Doing the initial story affects where we're starting off as far as jobs are concerned, but I'll go ahead and just do a couple of rounds so you can see essentially how it works and some of the most important things that you really want to do. As far as the really important things to do, first you really want to get crew members. You need to get those. Skill marks up because we're starting off with 3,000 credits, which is quite a bit. So we can hire a decent number of crew members, and again, typically we can find them in the Space Bazaar. We can find them in Persephone and a little bit in Regina, but the munition, the Silverhold, and Osiris, not quite so much. All right, so we will go ahead and get started with that, though. Bonnie May, or Burgess with the Bonnie May, has the Stegosaurus, which means that he gets to go first. Unfortunately, I don't have a plastic Stegosaurus, so it's very, very sad. I am ashamed of myself. But either way, he will start off with a buy action at the Space Bazaar. We've got the shiny necktie, improvised hacking device, and a crybaby. We'll take the crybaby as number 1, and then number 2, and number 3. So we got 2 scrappers and a crybaby. So the crybaby is nice because it can get the alliance off your back, at least for a little bit. We will go ahead and purchase one of the scrappers and then the crybaby for a total of 600. So the ship upgrade goes under one of the slots, and then the scrapper goes over here as part of the crew. And then the other scrapper gets discarded. All right, so we have done a buy deal, and now we will go ahead or we've done a buy action, and now we'll go ahead and do a deal, in this case with Amnon Dole. So again, we get to draw 3, and then we get to pick whatever we want to keep. Let's see. Ooh, we got some good ones here. Oh, perfect. All right. So this one's kind of nice. We've got load passengers, no limit, and then we delivered passengers, and we get paid based on the number of passengers we have. We need a fight and 2 mechanic, which is what we've got fairly easily. The other 2, they're both illegal, and they require 2 fight, which we don't have, sadly. So we'll go ahead and take this one. Again, we've got a hand limit of 3 for the number of jobs we can have, so that's good there. Stegosaurus moves. Now it's Serenity's turn. Yay! Shopping in Persephone. We will take a look at River Tam and the Crybaby. And then we'll draw one more from the face down. Ooh, a very fine hat. When dealing with contacts, you may consider up to 4 jobs instead of only 3. That's pretty nice, but it's very expensive. So we'll take the Crybaby and River. Now, River is a wanted person. So you see she's got that symbol next to her recruit. And the thing is, that only goes into effect if we run into the Alliance cruiser. Hopefully we won't, but you never know. Right, so she is now part of our crew. The fancy hat goes into the discard pile here in Persephone, and we pay 400 for our Crybaby. And just as with our good buddy over here, Burgess, we will go ahead and talk to Badger about getting some new jobs. So look at 3. So we've got illegal and immoral. Let's see, we've got 2 guns and a negotiate that we can get. Ooh, here we go. Let's see here. Playing the middleman, load 2 cargo and then deliver 2 cargo and wheel and deal to get paid. That's pretty nice. Yeah, unfortunately, that's really the only one that we're readily able to do right now, because we don't have a tech skill. Bummer. Well, actually, here we'll be crazy. We'll do slave wrangling. It's not going to be good for our people, but we'll make it work. All right. Done and done. All right. Let's see. So, load passengers, no limit. So we will load like all of the passengers. Here we have our little bag of passengers. So this is our work action. We are starting the Homesteader transport. We do have enough tech and the weapons. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, and 9. We are loaded up. And we need to get to Ithaca, which is very, very far away, unfortunately. It's all the way on the other side of the map. All right, so we will do a full burn and get out of here. So there is 1 move, draw a card, the big black, which means nothing happens. And then 2, so draw another card, the big black, nothing happens. Let's see, 3, 4, 5. 3, 4. Yeah, it doesn't matter. 3. Quote, family dinner. Kind of you to share. Spend a cargo, remove disgruntled from all crew, and keep flying. Or I'll be in my bunk. I will be in my bunk, mostly because I have no cargo. All right. And so that's 4. Big black, so we just keep flying. And 5. And the big black. Awesome. All right, so that was Burgess's turn. I didn't move the Stegosaurus. I apologize. All right. So we're going to head and start with this. This is going to be fun. Let's see here. Perfect. So we get to start here. We're going to go ahead and start this job with the slave wrangling, which means that we misbehaved to load 3 fugitives. All right, so we will send both Malcolm and River on this. So River's thing is before each test you roll, and depending on what you get, she gives different things. 5. I got a 5, which means I get 2 negotiate. So I've got 2 fight and 3 negotiate between my 2 people, and I get to do an aim to misbehave. Let's see here. Oh, man. Shoot. I can't do it. Working some hacking magic. I don't have a hacking rig, unfortunately. I can't roll a 9. I don't have the tech possibility. Oh, no. Oh, no. Well, this means I have to try it, which means I'm going to fail. No. I got a 4, which means that I got a warrant. No. Because I now have a warrant, that means that, first off, I can't do the job anymore. The job goes away because, you know, we're not allowed to do fancy jobs with warrants issued, unfortunately. And basically that means that I get the warrant on my ship and then I have to discard the job. So, and I'm an outlaw ship. No, I don't want to be an outlaw ship. Yeah, they all have discard piles. I forgot about that. I apologize. And then this goes to the discard. And that's it. That's the end. So I'm now wanted. And unfortunately, there's not much else I can do. I guess I'll go see Badger again. He doesn't care if I'm wanted. Let's see here. What can we do? It would be nice if I could get some help from him. So we'll take this one. Breaking into new markets. Because this one's legal. And hopefully I won't run into any trouble with it. But you never know. All right, so that's the end of that. So we'll just do one more round, one more for each one, because hopefully we'll be able to get it finished up. All right, so this C is deliver passengers in Ithaca, which we can make 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, so we'll do another full burn. 1, and draw a card. Nothing. 2, draw a card. Uh-oh. Player to your right moves the Alliance cruiser 1 sector within the Alliance space, and then you keep flying. All right, so that means that the Serenity would move it, and they probably move it away from them. All right, and then there's 3. So, oh, shoot. Dang it. I'm sorry. I screwed this up. I always forget this part. So, we are at the border of Alliance space right now. We're moving into a yellow one, which means that we should have been drawing from the border space instead. The big black, we still keep flying. And then we do it again. The big black, keep flying. And last one... Scrapper ambush. Oh, shoot. This is bad. Let's see here. So, slip the net. If we have Tech 5, then we can keep flying. It doesn't really matter. But we might lose out on a ship upgrade, which is bad. Then take them head on. Salvage op. Kill a crew and full stop if we fail. Or take 500 in 2 parts. The problem is we can try the Tech one. All right. So, we've got 2 Tech skills. So we need a 3 or more. Yes! We got 5, so that's a total of 7, which means that we get to keep going. So we're at Ithaca now, so it really doesn't matter. Deliver passengers, and we get 200 per. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 1,600. We are rolling in the monies. All right. Let's see here. One thing that I'd like to note that I didn't really talk about is the money in this game. I'll show you in just a little bit here. You notice that it looks nice, but the problem is it is very flimsy. It's not very high quality. I like the look, I like the art, and that's why I'm using it, but I would recommend using something else. I would recommend using poker chips or something like that. I'm using it for this demo just because I really do like the way that it looks, though. All right. So that's done, and now we are solid with Amnon Dull. So that goes underneath there, just like that, right? And that was our work action, and then it's back to Serenity. So you can see from that pretty clearly, I hope, how the dynamic goes and how everything works with the game. You can clearly see how very fast your everything can turn on you and how bad everything can go once you're wanted and all that kind of stuff. Just absolutely terrible. You want to make sure that you get a little bit more crew than I did. Having the crew members having those various skills is absolutely vital. And speaking of which, I forgot to pay my crew. The Scrapper demands 200. Sorry about that, Scrapper. There you go. Because I completed the mission. All right. So yeah, either way, I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that this at least makes you interested in trying out Firefly. But with that, we will jump right on ahead into my pros and cons and also my conclusions for the game as well. I hope that you guys enjoyed my demonstration for how to play Firefly. As I said at the very beginning, it's something that can be a little bit complex at first, or at least seem rather complex, but once you really get into it and really actually start playing, it becomes so much easier, just like pretty much anything else. But as always, we do have pros and we have cons. One of the biggest pros for me is I think that this game does a great job of really capturing the essence of Firefly. For those of you who have seen it, or just really if you know about it, then you know that Firefly is one of these sort of like, it's not even necessarily a cult hit, it's more of like a sleeper hit where it's like, oh my god, you haven't seen this thing? It's amazing! Go and watch it right now! And that's really what it came down to, is that people who watch it generally really enjoy it and really appreciate it. And like I said, the game really does capture that essence very well, where you've got sort of you don't know what's going to happen next, don't know if this is going to work, don't know if that's going to work. You have to improvise, you have to do this, that, or the other thing. All that kind of stuff. It's all here in the game. That is probably the biggest pro for me. One of the other major pros is, again, as far as just games in general go that are based off of TV or movies, this is a great example of how that can be done very, very well. It's something that we really don't see a whole lot, unfortunately, but this is one that's a good example of what you can have if you really respect the source material and get something that represents what it was originally, right? My last really major pro for this game, and certainly not the only other pro by any means, but the other one that I really particularly wanted to mention is the idea of the story cards. I really love that scenario-driven idea. I love the fact that it's got a scenario that you can play solo. That is something that I personally am a really big fan of, because sometimes you just don't have other people to play with. But you get a lot of versatility, you get a lot of replayability with those story cards, and on top of that, it means that depending on what type of game you're playing, what type of story you're working with, it's going to affect the way that you play. It's going to affect what you're doing, where you're going, what kinds of jobs you're trying to find, all of that kind of stuff. Like, are you going to go into the bad sectors? Are you going to go into the alliance-controlled sectors? All those kinds of things. And they are greatly affected by that story card, which is absolutely amazing. I love the way that the scenarios work. I also love the fact that it has that beginning scenario, and as you saw, it's something that really does a great job of introducing all of the mechanics while not being really overbearing, which is something that games like this can tend to be. Right? But now on to the cons. There are a few, but they're not really that big. The biggest thing is what I mentioned, one of the things that I mentioned during my demo, which is the money. If you guys have seen some of my stuff before, you know that I am a stickler for having good quality money in a game. Now, the money in this game is not awful. It's not terrible by any means. You can certainly use it, and it actually looks very nice, which is something that's great, but at the same time, if you really want to, then please just go ahead and use a poker chips. It's really not difficult. You can certainly do that, and it'll probably save you a whole lot of headaches. One of the other major cons for me on this is that if you are unfamiliar with Firefly, if you don't know the TV show, if you don't know Serenity, the movie, then you probably will not like the game. The problem is that I mentioned that one of my pros for this game is that it really took the material and did the material justice. For example, with the Stegosaurus. Like, if you haven't seen Firefly, then you wouldn't burst out laughing at seeing that Stegosaurus. But if you've seen it, then you know exactly how hilarious that is, and more importantly, why it's so hilarious. But if you are not familiar with the TV show at all, then you probably won't like the game. You're not going to really understand what's going on. You're not going to get all of the inside jokes and that kind of stuff. That said, there is a good game here. It is a good game outside the context of being Firefly, but again, if you're not familiar with it, then you're missing out on a large portion of the fun. Same thing for something like Munchkin, where a lot of the fun from the game comes from the humor. And if you just don't get it, if you're not familiar with it, if you're not familiar with the characters or the references, then it can very easily fall flat, unfortunately. But really, those are my only two major cons for it. I do like the vast majority of the components. The board is gorgeous. I love the little pieces. I do wish the plastic pieces for the ships were a little bit better, and just did something that was a little bit more like, you know, that type of thing. But overall, the components are great. The game itself is a lot of fun, especially if you're a fan. If you're not a fan, then it's probably a bit meh, but the timing is great for it. It's something that can be not too long, not too short, again, just depending on those different stories that you have. Overall, it's a great game, lots and lots of fun. I highly recommend that you pick it up. Hope that you enjoyed this video. I wanted to once again thank EAG for the suggestion. If any of you have particular games that you'd like to watch me review, please put them in the comments below. And as always, thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much again for watching my board game review and gameplay demo for Firefly. I know that it's a relatively big game, but I hope that I broke it down enough so that you can understand exactly how to play and how everything works, and most importantly, as always, if it made you curious about the game just to want to try it yourself. As always, I've got several of my playlists linked up at the top of the page so you can see more of my work, and if you want to see more of me in the future, go ahead and click on that big giant subscribe button. You can also follow me on Twitter at DannyCGamingSci, and again, do feel free to let me know if you have any suggestions for other games that you want to see, but thank you very much again, and I will see you next time.